Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Toilets Titles. My name is Justin Stevens, and I'm back with you for another episode of Toilets Titles, episode 174 for Toilets to Titles. This is a very special episode. I'm going to steal the title from our guest today. It's a mock on mock on mock. Um, we are going to be doing a mock draft today that is based off of the potential landing spots that we landed with in a mock draft that myself and Coach Sheps and several of the others on the team did. I'm not going to go through and name everybody, but I do at least want to name the guests that weren't part of Toilets to Titles that helped out with this mock draft. We're going to be going over this mock draft more in detail in a little bit, but I do want to thank at OJ Hopkinson, at Spidey's78, at Deep Fried Draft, at Jeff Hasley, at Miranda She Wrote, and at, of course, Shane Hallam, at Shane P. Hallam, that is. I got to make sure I get that right. But we did it. We did a mock draft online, just kicking it back and forth. We went 3 rounds. This is an actual NFL mock draft. So, for instance, with the 101, the Carolina Panthers took Bryce Young. So my guest and I tonight are going to sit down and I mean, I'm actually kind of a guest too, but we'll go over that in just a moment. But we're going to sit down and we're going to do a mock draft based off of that mock draft, the landing spots. We'll get into that draft a little bit more in detail here in just a moment. But first off, let me introduce the guest for Toilets to Titles, the guy from Dynasty Warzone, Randy. Memphis, how's it going, buddy?
What's happening, guys? Welcome to a little collab between my good friends over at Toilets to Titles and, of course, the Dynasty Warzone. Man, I'm super excited to be back. Yeah, when John, our good friend Coach Sheps, sent me the DM to be on this show, he was like, "We're gonna do a mock about a mock," and I was like, "We got mocks on mocks on mocks, man. It's going to be a big show. It's going to be a lot of fun." I like this idea. You know, we get to take the hypothetical of the mock draft you guys did, and y'all did a great job. There was like 10 trades, and I love promoting. So if you want to see the actual mock draft these guys did, you go to Toilets to Titles, and you look under their mock draft queue, and you will find this, because I had to look it over, because my man here, Justin, fellow Colts fan, if you're watching live on the Toilets to Titles YouTube channel, now, because we're also going to play this podcast on the Dynasty Warzone podcast feed. So if you're looking, and because you can't look if you're listening to a podcast, you should be listening with your ears. But if you go to YouTube and you search Toilets to Titles, first of all, you should already be a subscriber. But if you're not, remedy that right quick. And you look over Justin's shoulder there, you'll see a certain horseshoe that I happen to be fond of as well. So you got a couple of indie guys here co-hosting, co-collaborating, and mock drafting. And Justin, can I leave you like a message for our friend and coach?
Absolutely.
You know, remind him of what happened the last time he let me come into his podcast and co-host. You know, it was the Dynasty Warzone. I was the guest that never left. And I say that completely joking, because you know how much I love John like a brother. Happy to jump in. Was super excited for him to be on, but this is what I love about John. It's family first. He had a little family biznatch he had to take care of, a little business, if you will. Say it like Dusty Rhodes, the American dream, a little biznatch, but he's busy taking care of his family business, and we love John. So we're going to sit here and talk some ball, man.
Absolutely. I'll just make sure I tell him to listen to the first 3 minutes. I don't want to, break the punchline for him. So first off, the mock draft itself. The first glaring thing that I noticed that we need to correct for next time is, of all the names I see on here, I do not see any Dynasty Warzone or Memphis on here, and we've got to correct that for the next mock draft. Because it was a long mock draft. It was one of those things where we just we would pick and then tell the next person they're up. It took several days. So that's on us. That was a huge glaring mistake on our part. We will make sure we get the actual Memphis in here. Those just like Memphis said, guys. Those of you that are following Toilets to Titles, you have got to follow Dynasty Warzone. There's going to be a lot of collab work moving forward. You've already seen a little bit of it, just a taste of it. But moving forward, we really want to make this a real sister network sort of thing. So I guess the first question I have for you, and since we are fellow Colts fans, and we're going to try our best not to make this an all Colts podcast, Although I'm thinking maybe there's something in the future, at least on my end, I've already kind of been considering this. Maybe in the future we might have a Colts show, but let's keep this one away from being all Colts. But since we are both Colts fans, and I did make kind of a glaring risk that kind of bit me in the butt. What do you think about how I worked this Colts team in this mock draft?
I don't hate it, but I'm going to tell the listeners of Toilets to Titles. I have an unapologetic man crush on Justin. I'm still not Justin Fields. I like him too. Of Will Levis. I really like Will Levis. Now, sometimes when I like a type like that, it comes back to bite me. Sam Darnold and Drew Lock. But sometimes it pays off huge dividends, whether that's Josh Allen, Daniel Jones, Justin Herbert. I like these big, athletic, mobile, but not overly mobile, big arm quarterbacks. The smarter they are in school, the more I like them. So I have a type. Now, I don't want to spoil the entire mock draft, but you managed to get Will Anderson, defensive end, to put on the other side of Kwity Paye on the Colts defensive line. I think that'll be good with defensive coordinator Gus Bradley. And then you managed to get Hendon Hooker in the second round. I don't mind that, and I'll tell you why I don't mind Hendon Hooker. He's going to be basically a redshirt freshman type guy this year, and you're not going to play him a bunch. You're going to play a lot of Gardner Minshew, which means the Colts could be bad. And if the Colts are really bad and wind up with a top 1 or 2 pick next year, they could potentially be drafting Caleb Williams or Drake May, which then – maybe you have a bargaining chip to trade Hendon Hooker next year. So you kind of gave the team some outs. I don't know that they're going to go that way. I think Chris Ballard doesn't have a choice but to take a QB there and let Shane Steichen work his magic. But man, there's nothing wrong because, the Colts wouldn't be the first team to be using this philosophy. There's talk that Houston could forego a quarterback and turn around and draft a defensive lineman or maybe an offensive lineman as well.
Yeah.
And, punt quarterback for another year. So Adam Schefter came out the other day and said he expects no more than 2 QBs to be taken in the first 5 picks. And Schefty's pretty patched in. And if you think about it, it makes sense, right? So I think you did a fine job as a fellow Colts fan. And I'd give you a solid B. Solid B.
Right on, right on. Well, if I'm being completely transparent, I really wanted to try to trade back personally. I was trying to trade back to that 15, 17 to maybe 2022 range and hopefully still get Will Levis. I wanted to see how far Will Levis would fall in a mock draft like this of our peers because we're all fans, right? We're not GMs. So I want to see where the fans would have taken him. It still would have bit me because our man from Deep Fried Draft actually traded up to the 10th spot with his Minnesota Vikings to take Will Levis. So I still would not have gotten him had I traded back. So the fallback there at the 204 was the Hendon Hooker for all the same reasons that you said. And also you kind of like to think that Hendon Hooker would be ready to go by the end of the season after his injury rehab. And he's going to be ready for training camp from what we hear, but obviously he's not going to be gameplay ready to start the season. Maybe those last few games you get to see what he's got. Maybe he's going to be worth it. But yeah, absolutely. Enough about the Colts. We will move on here. But was there anything else that was just a glaring yes or no that really stood out to you?
Not really. I like that because you go to certain like mock drafts. Like I use Tankathon a lot, which I think they're tied to Walter Football and Bleacher Report, and that's all cool. It's all totally good, but they never, or I shouldn't say never, but they rarely mix in a lot of trades. You guys had like 8-10 trades, and they were all very realistic. And you gave up stuff, and then you made the second and third round picks based off the trades that you made. It was very accurate. I don't think we get 10 trades in day 1 and day 2, but it was a lot of fun, and you guys did a really good job. So we'll talk about the skill position players. Do you want me real quick to run through all of the skill position guys? Because I can pull that up real quick.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that would be great.
Because we don't want these guys to wait until we announce, and by guys, I mean the ladies and gents that listen to the Toilets to Titles. dynasty and fantasy and all things football podcast, but I'll read them real quick. I'll be as quick but as efficient as I possibly can. So you already mentioned it earlier. The Carolina Panthers took Bryce Young in the 101 position. The Vegas betting odds seem to agree. The Texans took the big risk, big upside in Anthony Richardson. The Las Vegas Raiders traded up to get C.J. Stroud. You already mentioned Will Levis fell to the Minnesota Vikings via trade. A pick that I didn't love because I'm a big John Mechie guy, but Houston, with their second first-round pick, winded up with Jackson Smith and Jigba. The Green Bay Packers took Notre Dame tight end Michael Mayer. I'm going to have a hard time not calling him Michael Meyer, the Halloween serial killer guy, but we'll navigate through that the best we can all 2023.
And he should really play on that as well.
He absolutely. I'd be walking around with like a rubber, not a real, steak knife and a white mask, and yeah, it's bad. We'll talk about this next guy. He'll probably be an early pick. Bijan Robinson, Philadelphia. Jordan Addison went to the Chargers. Zay Flowers, a guy that I'm actually hoping falls to our Colts in the early second round, went to the Baltimore Ravens in this mock. The New York Giants took Quentin Johnston. John's Cowboys took Dalton Kincaid. I think the Dallas Cowboys are a great landing spot for a rookie tight end.
Yeah.
Buffalo added some speed in Jalen Hyatt at the wide receiver position, and that was all the skill position players that went in the first round of your all's mock. Round 2, the Houston Texans went another wide receiver in Joshua Downs. You already alluded to it as well. Hendon Hooker to the Colts with your second round pick. The Seahawks took Cedric Tillman to add to their wide receiver group. A pick that I absolutely loved personally because I think it gives us the cliche thunder and lightning in Atlanta when they add Jahmyr Gibbs to the existing running back room of Tyler Algier. Marvin Mims to the Patriots. I think that's a good fit. Darnell Washington, tight end out of Georgia, to the Lions. Another tight end. He sounds like a country music singer to me. Maybe I'm crazy. I don't know. But the Jacksonville Jaguars took Luke Musgrave.
Or a NASCAR driver.
The critics would also say NASCAR driver. Good friend and Toilets to Titles contributor, Mr. George Reed, took a very Homer-esque pick here. He took Zach Charbonnet at the back end of the second round with the Miami Dolphins. And then the Bears added some more speed to their backfield by adding Devon Achane. And then in the third round, the final round of the mock draft done by the Toilets to Titles crew, they took Arizona Cardinals took wide receiver Rashee Rice. The Los Angeles Rams took wide receiver Tyler Scott. The Tennessee Titans took heir apparent to Derrick Henry and I call him Izzy, but Israel Abanikanda. The Colts. This is one you knocked out of the park, by the way. Michael Wilson. We'll probably talk about him during the mock. If we don't, I love him. I think if he goes here to the Colts, I think this could be our Terry McLaurin pick. A guy who did well at the Senior Bowl, who I could just would be nice. If he would be a wonderful consolation prize for me as a Colts fan if we do not, in fact, wind up with a Zay Flowers. Kendre Miller kind of poo-poos some dynasty gamers who really hope Rachaad White gets the bell cow role in Tampa Bay, but you all had Kendre Miller falling to Tampa Bay. The Eagles drafted a second tight end, maybe like someone to fill in when Dallas Goedert's hurt, and Sam Laporta. John, 2 tight ends. He pulled a Colts from last year. The Colts last year took Ogletree, and I'm drawing a blank on the other guy's name, and I love him. I just tweeted about him the other day. Not Javon Kinlaw, Lord mercy. Anyway, he'll come back to me during the course of the show. But he took another tight end. He took Tucker Kraft. Cincinnati Bengals, maybe a potential replacement for a T. Higgins they can't potentially afford in Jonathan Mingo. The Bucks add a speedster somewhat in their own right in Tank Dell. The Chiefs continue to try to answer the wide receiver 1 question for them with A.T. Perry.
Not a bad way to answer it.
Not too shabby at all. A little bit older prospect, but not too shabby. The Cardinals maybe give themselves a little bit of an option at the QB position. They took Dorian Thompson-Robinson. New Orleans Saints took local guy Tajay Spears. And they also took a wide receiver in Bryce Ford-Wheaton. And the final skill position player in typical 49ers fashion, They took Tanner McKee right there in the kind of that Northern California area, quarterback out of Stanford. So that's the recap of the skill position players in the top three. How do you rate my recap for the listeners?
That was incredible. You blew right through that like you've been practicing all day, and I know you haven't. So that was pretty amazing. But for the record, we have confirmed that Dorian Thompson has already swapped gamer tags with Kyler Murray. So they're able to communicate back and forth via video game. But the the I want to throw out a request real quick for if I'm ever given the opportunity to come on Dynasty Warzone with you, because I'm not usually typically much of a Dynasty guy. So this is going to be deep in the future because I'm only starting to really get into the Dynasty formats. Um, I, I I like one of your segments, the good people, bad tweets. So I want that to be a part of that episode. So you guys noticed
Well, first of all, I hate to cut you off. It's bad co-hosting, but you know what? I'm gonna do. Consider yourself invited. B, much like you guys, we have a Patreon, and one of the things that we've done a lot of is helping people that want to create content. Create content. We have three guys. We have Jesse, Mike, and Chad. They host a show on our network called the Dynasty War Games. They typically record live on Monday evenings, and then we broadcast the podcast on Monday evenings on YouTube. And then Thursday, I make it a podcast. I would love to have you on because you don't truly get the credit you deserve. And maybe you do when I'm not on the air. You don't get it on Twitter. You do an amazing job of holding the Toilets and Titles, group together. You do an amazing job in your own right with the production values, with the thumbnails, with the producing of the show. You're always great on air, but you do a tremendous job behind the scenes, and I would love to have you on the show.
I do appreciate that, but I have to admit that I did a lot of that in the beginning. I did a lot of that the first couple of years, but the last year we've kind of been spreading that out to other guys. So I definitely want to give props to Nino and Jared and Joe and George and Andrew and like the whole team. Like I know I'm forgetting people, but we've got so many on the team now that I can't just sit here and name them all because we only have a 45-minute show. But I do appreciate the perks. And I do feel like I helped a lot in the beginning, but there's just so many guys on the team that really make this happen. But guys, down there at the bottom of your screen, and if you're not watching on YouTube, it's patreon.com/Dynasty Warzone, so make sure you hit them up there, especially if you're a Patreon of ours as well. With this collab, who knows? Maybe we can come up with a special a bonus for the Patreons that support both. So. We'll figure something out if we have to on that end. But I say we get into this draft because, first of all, we only have about 25 minutes left. And I want to see how far we go with this. But just to give the viewers a little bit of a rundown on how this draft is going to work. Again, just like we said before, and if you're not watching on YouTube, you should because we have the screen up for you. We are going to be drafting a Superflex Dynasty rookie only linear draft, and this is going to be based off of that mock draft, those skill players that Memphis just listed so elegantly. See, I can't even talk straight when I'm just saying one sentence. So it's a good thing you took the lead on that, Memphis. So I'm gonna forfeit the 101 to you, and then we'll alternate from there. So who do you got here? Who are we gonna kick this thing off with?
I'm going to keep it short and sweet. Even though it's super flex, I don't love this quarterback class, and I'm not going to pass on the sure thing that is Bijan Robinson. I will tell you, I would not love the Eagles as a landing spot because Jalen Hurts is going to get his around the goal line. They don't check the ball down. A lot of people, I heard this on Twitter, speaking of good people, bad tweets, and they were talking about his lack of usage in the passing game, and like all of a sudden, Kenneth Gainwell is going to be this PPR machine. I'm like, look at the total targets last year. This offense and it's very typical of the running style quarterback. They don't tend to check down a lot. So that would be my reservation because Bijan catches the ball really well. I would prefer Bijan land in a spot like Dallas. So I'm sorry to Tony Pollard fans out there. I'd love to see him land in a spot where they have a mobile quarterback. I think what's going to happen, I'm calling my shot here on Toilets of Titles. I think the Texans are going to draft are going to draft CJ Stroud number 2, and they're going to do a lot of checking down to the running back. So I like Bijan Robinson. I don't love the landing spot with Philadelphia, but I'm going to make him my 101.
Outstanding. I love it. This is a super flex, and the quarterback is going to be tough for me because while I kind of like the landing spot for most of these, I have to admit the boomer bust of Anthony Richardson does kind of scare me. Being on the Texans also kind of scares me. I'm really starting to fall for Bryce Young, and I'm really starting to believe that he's the real deal. But did you happen to see the tweet that went out where Peyton Manning was pretty much saying that Will Levis was genetically engineered to be an NFL quarterback? I don't know if you saw that or not.
I did, and I saw Will Levis's. I've been doing some work with the folks over at Player Profiler, and one of their other contributors is a gentleman named Anand Naduri, and he used to work in an NFL front office, and he's really big on this draft side. And he posted a tweet that Will Levis is now the favorite to go second overall.
Oh,
and I'm not going to curse on the Toilets to Titles podcast because I don't know what the language parameters are, but I will tell you this: Peyton, keep your big yap shut.
Yeah. No
keep kidding. Your yap, because I want Will Levis as I've wanted him all along, but we'll find out more. So you're going Bryce Young here?
Okay, I do love Will Levis, and I love the landing spot with the Vikings with Justin Jefferson and the weapons he has there. But at the same time, yes, I think I'm still going to go Bryce Young here, even though I do think that Will Levis is the real deal. So yeah, I'm going to go with Bryce Young. I don't think that running game is going to be stacked enough for them. They're going to need Bryce Young in all facets of the game, and he does have all facets of the game to show. So I'm gonna be good here. I'm gonna let you do what you're gonna do next, but I'm gonna go with Bryce Young with the 102.
Well, I like that pick, and for those of the Toilets to Titles listeners that are seasonal gamers that play seasonal Superflex, if this scenario plays out the way that you have, I think Bryce Young's the only one that's going to have any real 2023 value. Because if Stroud does go to the Raiders and Levis goes to the Vikings and Richardson goes to the Texans, there's a shot where none of those guys see a lot of playing time.
Right.
Which is cool because this is the way the NFL used to do it. You redshirt these guys. Patrick Mahomes got redshirted.
Yeah.
And this wouldn't hurt all of them long term, but it would hurt their fantasy value in 2023 alone. But I like what you guys did here. I am gonna swing for this is where I'm swinging for a home run. I don't want to hit a double. If I'm going to invest the 103, if I want to take a guy that's going to have like a Jared Goff, Kirk Cousins type career arc and a CJ Stroud, why wouldn't I just go trade the 103 for Kirk Cousins plus in a dynasty league? I would much rather take Will Levis here. I know it's way too early, but you know what? If he goes to Minnesota the way you have it, you mean he gets to throw to TJ Hawkinson? You mean he gets to throw to Justin Jefferson? You mean he gets to have the head coach that coached up the LA Rams, plays indoors, 9 times a year they play, Detroit indoors. I know it's early. I know it's a homer pick. I 100% admit that, but I have to go based off the landing spots y'all gave me and the parameters of the draft, which is Superflex. Yeah. So I'm going to try to hit a double. On a recent show I did on Player Profiler, you can find it on their YouTube channel. We did rookie comps, and I compared Will Levis to Sam Herbert or Justin Darnold, meaning that this guy could be everything from Sam Darnold to Justin Herbert and everything in between. So I'm taking a big swing, knowing it could be a big miss, but that's my pick at the 103.
Very good, and I'm glad you clarified that because I was trying to figure out who Sam Herbert was.
When I wrote the show sheet, Jerry, my co-host, was equally confused. He's like, I think you had a Freudian slip. I'm like, no, it was meant to be a joke, kind of like some humor, some levity. We're supposed to entertain and educate Jerry. You think after 5 years he'd get it by now, but yeah, here we are.
It was entertaining, I promise. Let's see, and I'm not just saying that. Let's see. So I'm up. I'm at the 104, and in a rookie draft right now I'm tilting because Will Levis just went off the board, because I have to pretend like I wasn't the guy that drafted at 102 also. So I have to pretend like I didn't have the opportunity to take him a spot early. If I'm looking at the board and I know it's super flex, I'm looking at these quarterbacks like you said that aren't necessarily going to make a day one, season one, any kind of points for my team. So I might start to consider some of these wide receivers. I don't think I'm going to dig too deep at running back just yet, because at this point, I think digging at running back, even though it's Jahmyr Gibbs and he's got a real shot at season one, I think I'm going to push. There's a couple wide receivers here that I like better. But ultimately, I'm usually in it for the long haul when I do play Dynasty. I think I still cannot pass up CJ Stroud here in a super flex. So I've always liked Jimmy Garoppolo. I've always liked him as a backup guy. I've always liked him as a good game manager. But I mean, it's the Raiders, and it's all about going big with them, and it's all about being flashy and putting on a show and trying to win now. And I think there's a chance that they might try to throw CJ Stroud out there a little bit this season just to see what he's got. And by next season, his year two, he very, very likely could get a lot of playing time, if not be the starter. So I'm going to go with CJ Stroud here.
Well, I really like that pick, and I think him going to the Raiders is a good spot because he's mostly a finished product. There's a little polish, there's a little nuance you can add to his game, and I think that's where Josh McDaniel would be a really good offensive coordinator for him. We've seen Josh McDaniel years ago with Tim Tebow and that highly developable, that's not even a word, a QB that's able to be developed at a high level. That's a better combination of words into English. But he wasn't able to get Tim Tebow, because this would not be a good spot for me with Anthony Richardson. I don't think Josh McDaniel can take him from a raw product to a finished product. But if you can give him a CJ Stroud that's a mostly finished product and put a little polish on him with Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers and Hunter Renfrow and Josh Jacobs and a decent offensive line, maybe he could step in after 3 or 4 games and really thrive. So I love your pick. I've got a pick. Now, I'll be honest. I've been very close on these two guys the entire time. I don't love it because it hurts my man John Mechie, who I'm rooting for. He's going to be at the OTAs this week, coming back from like a lymphoma, I believe, it's a cancer of that type. But I got to take Jackson Smith and Jigba here at the 105. I think this is not the best for my man Mechie, but to put Jackson Smith and Jigba with a really good, accurate passer of the quarterball of the football at the quarterback position, this is a hand in glove for me. Is it as good as it would have been with maybe CJ Stroud? No, but him catching the ball from Young for Jackson Smith and Jigba, 2 big thumbs up. I think this should be the absolute last spot you should be able to get JSN in a super flex startup, or not, excuse me, a super flex rookie draft. 105 should be his floor, and if you get him at the 105, you should be thrilled. I think this should be pretty standard ADP at this point.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love that. I'm really, really, really hoping that after they move on from Aaron Rodgers, the Green Bay Packers go out of their way to get Jackson Smith and Jigba. I think that would be hilarious for one, but also the Packers have always been my NFC team. I love the guy, I love the player, and they need a wide receiver. Unfortunately, though, like you said, within the parameters of this draft, you gotta deal with what you're dealt. It's still JSN. It's still a great pick. Real quick, so JFL is in the chats. JFL Prod, I'm guessing producer. He said CJ Stroud and Jigba, and he said those back to back, and we took him back to back. So I think we're doing all right so far. Yeah, what's up, Rich? Real quick, also, before I move on, I neglected to talk about our own Patreon. So it's patreon.com/Toilets Titles. So now you've got Dynasty Warzone. Now you got Toilets Titles. Hit us with that Patreon. We appreciate your support. I'll make my pick right now because I already know exactly where I'm going, because I actually kind of love the landing spot here. Keenan Allen isn't going to be there forever. And he's just a baller. He's a great player. So I just posted on our TikTok earlier today. CJ Johnson has been going out of his way every offseason to go train with Keenan Allen. Turns out Keenan Allen trains with a lot of young wide receivers on a regular basis. So he's almost like a coach on the field for these guys when they come in. And I don't think that it's any coincidence that other wide receivers like Mike Williams will come in and play beyond their potential at the NFL level. So I feel pretty strongly that um, Jordan Addison from USC Miranda she wrote at Miranda she wrote chose Jordan Addison to go to the LA Chargers for her Chargers. I think it's a great pick. I think it's a great fit, and he's got a great quarterback. So I'm going to go with Jordan Addison here.
That was almost my choice. I like the talent. I like the size of JSN just a little bit more than Jordan Addison. But way back when we first started talking rookies, it was the end of January, 1st of February. I came on and did a mock draft with you guys. And I had Addison at that time as my wide receiver one. I really like that landing spot. Not only can they not keep Keenan Allen forever, but I don't think Mike Williams has to be there forever.
Fair.
They're pretty expensive. They're banged up. They're going to have to extend Herbert. I think Bosa's still needing a contract, if I remember correctly. Derwin James makes a lot of money. They've hit on some draft picks. They're going to need to free up some cap, and cheap free agent and rookie skill position is going to be where they have to go. But you left me a guy, and I said, and I quote, if this guy lands in a premier position like Miami, I have to move Zach Charbonnet ahead of Jahmyr Gibbs. Nothing against Jahmyr Gibbs, but Zach Charbonnet, again, I'm going to keep referencing the podcast / YouTube video I did for Player Profiler the other night. I comp this guy, and it's an old school comp. And kids, if you've never seen him play because you're newer to Dynasty, you need to go to YouTube and search Larry Johnson NFL. Because if you search Larry Johnson, you may get the basketball player who went by Grandmama. But Larry Johnson, who came out of that's right, Larry Johnson, who came out of Penn State, who played for the Kansas City Chiefs. If you watch some of his tape from the early 2000s, and then you watch Zach Charbonnet, you see a lot of comparables. You're going to put him in this McDaniel offense down there in Miami, not to be confused with Josh McDaniels, but Mike McDaniel, singular. Then you're going to see some stuff. I love this. The only thing between him and Dynasty excellence here is a bunch of bums named Myles Gaskin, Salvon Ahmed, Jeff Wilson Jr., and Raheem Mostert. And he will blow past all of these guys in no time. So his Dynasty value would shoot to the moon. So give me Zach Charbonnet here because I love the landing spot for George Reed's Miami Dolphins.
Excellent. I love it. And I also love it for another reason, because you made my next decision very easy. I had it between Charbonnet and Jahmyr Gibbs. And just like you said, that tandem in the backfield with the Atlanta Falcons, running backs aren't like most skill positions. Running backs can come in year one and hit the ground running and be good for your fantasy team. So even though typically in a super flex, you're going to see a lot of quarterbacks taken in the first round, I think that's a big reason why you're not seeing it in this particular first round. Also, just because, they're rookies. They're not going to play first year most likely. So I'm really thrilled right now at where are we at the 108 to be able to get Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm also thrilled to get him for Nate, our boy Nate, who's on the team. He's a big fan of Gibbs, so he kind of talks about him all the time. I think he talks about him in his sleep at night too. So,
well, I like Gibbs a lot. It was close because, like I mentioned, when I was reading the rundown of the players and where you guys mock drafted them to, I think this would be a great spot. Thunder and Lightning with Tyler Algier, and the landing spot doesn't bother me if he lands with another decent running back. I mean, the lazy comp to him has been Alvin Kamara. The comp that I like a little bit better is Christian McCaffrey. But
okay,
if you go to Player Profiler and put in both Gibbs and Christian McCaffrey and look at their size, they're virtually identical. from a height and weight standpoint. Like Christian McCaffrey at the combine weighed 202. Jahmyr Gibbs weighed 199. 3 pounds doesn't make a whole lot of difference. That's half a meal for some of us. So it's not a huge to do for Jahmyr Gibbs. But when Alvin Kamara came in the league, he shared a backfield with a guy named Mark Ingram, who was pretty damn good at football. And when you have a good offensive-minded head coach, I'm not 100% sure on the Titans. He used to be with the Titans, but with the Falcons head coach, not 100% there because he's not used his weapons properly. So that's why I went Charbonnet. But this right here is the quintessential spot where I want to get Anthony Richardson. If I'm drafting ninth and this is my draft spot, then last year I finished in the final four of my league. I probably got a couple of good quarterbacks, but you know what? Maybe I'm still sitting on maybe you have Josh Allen and Aaron Rodgers. Maybe you have Patrick Mahomes and like Mac Jones or somebody. This is the perfect guy to sit behind a couple of those type quarterbacks, and in a year you can see what you have. And you know what? This could be a winning lottery ticket. The reason why I took Anthony Richardson and Will Levis, these are the kind of guys that if they hit the tippy top of their ceiling, they're going to win you dynasty leagues. Whereas Bryce Young and CJ Stroud are going to be that Kirk Cousins, Jared Goff type that aren't going to lose you a league, but aren't going to go out of their way to win you one. So give me the big home run swing here in Anthony Richardson. I think this is not only good value, I think this is a good spot for him right now. But I will say this, you're in a bad spot yourself because this is a big tier break for me right here in Superflex. Now, is this tight end premium too?
I don't think that we set it up as time.
Okay, perfect. I just want to make sure because as you're making your selection, I've got a review.
Yeah. So first off, I want to comment about your Anthony Richardson. I really enjoyed that. As you said, you're already a big fan of Mechie, and then now according to this mock, there's also Jackson JSN is there. So he's got weapons, right? So he has something to work with. Damian Pierce showed that he's no slouch at the running back.
Bobby Trees. They brought in Bobby Trees as a veteran presence.
Yeah, absolutely. And they've got Dalton Schultz now, and so they have a viable tight end. So I mean, he's got weapons, right? So I thoroughly enjoyed the pick. That's definitely a futuristic pick. So now, as you said, there's a tier break, and there's a clear talent break, but also kind of iffy on some of these landing spots. Like we both have mentioned. Well, you mentioned it, but I totally agree. Zay Flowers, if he falls to the Colts, like that's going to be amazing. You and I will get on a show and we'll cheers together on that one if it happens. But some of these other like having him with the Baltimore Ravens, I'm not super stoked about that landing spot, right? So that's kind of what I'm looking at. So if I'm sitting here at the 110 as a Colts fan in a super flex, it's a homer pick. But I'm going to, at this point, even though it's kind of blowing a first round pick, it's a late first. I'm going to get the Colts quarterback. So I'm going to go out of my way to take Hendon Hooker here, and that's only because I'm being honest with myself. I was a Colts fan for all of the other odd number picks in this draft, but I felt like the talent, the landing spot, the value was too great to pass up on all those other players. I'm sorry, even numbered. But in this case, I can't risk it anymore because at this point I know he's not coming back to me. But also because of the tier breaks, I'm going to take the risk, and I'm going to hope that I have the Colts quarterback in the future. I hope he pans out, and then if he doesn't, I'm going to be trying to get that Colts quarterback next year anyway.
Well, allow me to commend you on this pick, and any of your dynasty gamers that wind up with Hendon Hooker here, you're doing okay. And let me tell you why. Again, if you took him at the 110, you finished in the final four in your league, and you've probably got some established quarterbacks. You've earned the right to take this scratch-off lottery ticket that is Hendon Hooker. Because if Hendon Hooker hits, he's going to be a key cog. He's got the ceiling. And it's not just the Colts that are a good landing spot. If Seattle decides to quote unquote reach and take him, I think they have either 18 or 20, or Detroit does the same thing because they also have 2 first-round picks, a top 7, and then they both have like around 20.
Or the Vikings at 17, I believe.
The Vikings at 17, I've seen him linked to. That's perfect because he's going to sit for a year. It's going to be like a bond or a treasury note that takes a little bit of time to mature, But when you get paid, you get paid. And I think you've earned the right to take Hendon Hooker at the 110. I'm going to go with a guy. And there are two places if you're a Toilets to Titles listener, that you can find my rankings. You can find them over at patreon.com/Dynasty Warzone. Or about a week after I post them on the Patreon, I send them to the guys over at Toilets to Titles. And a guy that has moved up my wide receiver rankings. He is now my wide receiver 4 in this class. And I'm going to take him ahead of my wide receiver 3 because I do not like the landing spot with Baltimore and OBJ and Mark Andrews. So I'm going to take Marvin Mims here right now. And Marvin Mims might have the most ridiculous high school season ever in the history of the state of Texas. How ridiculous? I'm glad you asked. He had 114 catches, not targets, 114 in high school, 2,626 yards. That's not a typo. I'm taking this right off of Max Preps. 2,626 yards, an average of 23 yards a catch, 187 yards a game. Oh, how many touchdowns? Again, great question. 31. The dude averaged 2 touchdowns a game. My comp for him on the Player Profiler show the other night was bursty T.Y. Hilton. He's as fast as T.Y. Hilton. He's about the same size as T.Y. Hilton, but he's a much more explosive, sudden athlete. Think somewhere between, in my opinion, it's just my opinion, think somewhere between T.Y. Hilton and Tyreek Hill. And I think that's where he's not quite as explosive as Tyreek, but just as fast as those kind of guys. So give me Marvin Mims going to the New England Patriots because he walks in day one and he's the alpha. I mean, who's he got to beat out? A bunch of bums, Devontae Parker, and a bunch of scrubs off the waiver, not waiver wire, but the free agent wire. He could literally walk in and produce big as a rookie. So give me Marvin Mims right here. Especially, I'll take him. Now, had the draft spots been flip-flop with him and Zay Flowers, we're having a different conversation.
Oh, yeah.
But based on what I have, his path to wide receiver 1 success, target opportunity as a rookie, moving up my draft board, Marvin Mims is my pick.
Outstanding. Love it. I want to real quick because we're about to close this out. We definitely don't have time for a second round, but I want to close this out real quick by mentioning CFB Nation, the CFB Nation on Twitter. That is our college football team. We have a team of 5 guys that are out at 5 different Division I schools on the sidelines doing interviews with coaches and players and interviews at the NFL draft coming up. They've done interviews at the Senior Bowl and the NFL Combine right here in Indianapolis. They are all over the place, and their Twitter handle is not doing justice. They only had like 267 followers earlier on Twitter. That is at CFB Nation. Get on there and follow them on Twitter, please. I'm going to say that they are sponsoring this round 1 right here, just so I can give them a little bit of a plug. I love the way that this first round has gone so far. I want to say that on our YouTube shorts and on our TikTok, you can see our man Coach Sheps talk about my next pick, Michael Mayer. I understand he's a tight end. He's a rookie. How in the world can you take a rookie tight end in the first round? But guys, listen to Coach Sheps when he talks. This man, because I don't watch a lot of college football, but when I do, it's Notre Dame. Okay, again, we're in Indiana. I root for Notre Dame. Even though I can admit that they're usually overrated almost every single year to start the season. But I digress. Michael Mayer can do it all. He can block. He finished in the top 5 for tight ends in Division I football for receiving yards each of the last 2 years, with over 800 yards both seasons. The dude is an animal, all right? In this particular mock draft, he went to the Green Bay Packers, and the Green Bay Packers did not take any other weapons in these first 3 rounds in the way of weapons for their quarterback. So Michael Mayer could very potentially come in season 1 and get some good work. This isn't designed to be a tight end premium. This isn't designed to be a 2 tight end league. And I'm still okay with taking him at the tail end of the first round. And not just because I enjoy watching the man play football on Saturdays and I want to enjoy watching him play on Sundays. I straight up believe that he could be a year 1 contributor and possibly be a stud by year 2. So I'm going to go with Michael Mayer.
Well, I know we're wrapping it up. I like Michael Mayer. It's like sometimes I will say this before I get into my love for Michael Mayer. I will say if Dalton Kincaid does land in Dallas,
Yeah,
or anyone lands in Dallas, to be quite honest, especially with first round NFL draft capital, it's going to be hard not to elevate him past Michael Mayer. But sometimes we galaxy brain this thing. The
yeah,
guy was the one that was the tight end one coming in, and I think Kincaid's good. And he wasn't even supposed to be the one on his own team. He just kind of ascended to that. It's and I agree with the overrated comment that you made, Justin, because I was told that Kyle Rudolph was purple Gronk because he was, coming out of Notre Dame. We had Tyler Eifert. These guys from Notre Dame. Cole Kmet was another guy.
yeah.
But Michael Mayer, he has the quintessential skills that you want out of a rookie, and I think it would be so appropriate because we've heard this song and dance and crying for Aaron Rodgers that Green Bay never took a first round skill position player for him. How much fun would it be is the year that Aaron Rodgers is out of Green Bay is the year that Green Bay takes a first round skill position guy. I would love it. I would absolutely, I'd be giddy about it. I actually think Green Bay should take Jordan Addison and take a tight end in the second round. But this is the hand we were dealt. I think Michael Mayer, even though this is not a tight end premium league, that's a fine pick because it's a good offense. He's going to get targets, and he should play as a rookie.
Well, very well. I appreciate that. Those are. It sounds like you and I are pretty level on most of these picks. It doesn't sound like we disagree too much, which made for very uninteresting radio. But what can we do?
Well, we can't force it. I mean, it's like I'm hoping the listener didn't hear. Oh, Quentin Johnston went in the first round to the Giants, and there's a clear void for them. That's not changing my mind. Jalen Hyatt went to Buffalo, and he's paired with Josh Allen. I've been down the Gabe Davis road. I'm not falling for that banana in the tailpipe. There's a lot of really good skill position guys, but I think for the most part, some of the listeners and some of the viewers on YouTube may say, hey, Richardson should have went a couple of picks higher. I would have taken, Gibbs ahead of Charbonnet or Stroud should have went ahead of Levis or Young. And those are all fine. But I think by and large, for the most part, based off the results of the first mock draft, I think the mock draft you and I did was pretty good. And here in about 2 weeks, we'll have real post NFL draft data to be able to comp how you and I did versus how the dynasty and fantasy world will see these guys post NFL draft.
And that's kind of what I was trying to get at is there are going to be people out there that kind of disagree with us. I want to see that in the comments. Please comment that in the YouTube and let us know what you would have done differently because we want to see it. Like we want to see on draft day here in about a week and a half where we were wrong with our mock draft that we based this mock draft off of. And then we want to see how you would have worked it differently in this mock as well. So, but I want to throw out there patreon.com/toilets to I can't thank the Patreon supporters enough for all that you guys have done for us over the years. Even before we had a Patreon, the support was unreal and incredible. You guys are the ones that are moving this ship. Patreon.com/Dynasty Warzone. Again, if you guys aren't watching on YouTube right now, you should be. Give us that like, give us the thumbs up. I think that's pretty much it for my outro, but I want to hear your outro, sir.
Well, I got a couple of three things myself. One, we appreciate all the support, but that goes well beyond just saying, Patreon. Not everybody's in a position to open up the wallet. And you know what? We don't expect you to. If you're able to, if you're interested in the mock drafts, the extra podcasts, the patron leagues, all the things that we both do at our various patrons are not always the same, but it's 100% free. Me and my buddy Kyle, we used to say it's the freest way to help guys like the Toilets of Titles crew or the Dynasty Warzone crew is simply go to iTunes or Spotify or Google Play and leave a rating and review. That is free. It costs you nothing but a couple of minutes of your time. That's a tremendous help. Go to YouTube. If you're listening to this and you're normally a Toilets to Titles listener and you're here in the Dynasty Warzone for the first time, go over and subscribe to the Dynasty Warzone. It's free. It costs you nothing. cross-pollinating and helping each other out is a big way to help everybody. It's not about the patron. The Patreon for us, it pays for the streaming service. It keeps the lights on, if you will. But the real way for the long-term growth and health and sustainability of the shows, it's rating, reviews, and subs, guys. And all of that costs you nothing, and it means everything to us. So that is my outro. But I'm going to say, because I've not done this with Justin, but I'm going to tonight. On behalf of that man, his name is Justin. You can follow him at JustinFF_. You can follow me at DWZ Memphis. You can follow the show everywhere at Toilets to Titles. And remember, here at the Toilets to Titles Warzone Dynasty Thingamajigger, we're just trying to make the world a better place for fantasy football. We'll see you back here real soon on both networks. Thanks for tuning in, guys.